Hello and welcome to the Association for Coaching podcast. My name is Rob Lawrence and I'm your host for this Boost Your Coaching Business series. Today I have with me someone with 25 years experience in marketing, having helped hundreds of coaches, consultants and business owners to improve their marketing, achieving greater financial success through doing what they love. In my conversation with her today, I'm hoping we can bust some myths about marketing, as well as learn a tip or two in terms of how, as coaches, we can improve our game when it comes to finding the right clients for our growing coaching practices. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today, Lisa Farr. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Rob.
Before we begin, how would you describe who you are in the world today and what it is that you do?
How I see myself now is I specialize in helping coaches to get their work out into the world in a way that's based on integrity and authenticity. So for me, it's about how do you build your coaching practice in a way that feels good for you and is successful in attracting the right type of clients to your business.
Wow. So that sounds fascinating. Tell me more about that. So how do you practically do that when you're working with clients?
So in a practical sense, I work with clients both on the practical marketing strategies that work very specifically for a coaching business. And I also work a lot with clients on mindset, because I think mindset is so crucial. And a lot of the mindset, or where I start, I suppose, with mindset is for any coach and for myself as well. It's tuning into the value that we give to our clients. We have to know that the value that we bring and how clients get the value from the work that they do with us. And then, of course, how to articulate that value to their clients. So that's one of the first sort of mindset shifts, really getting tuned into your value and how your client receives that value.
Yeah, and obviously this is something that you have had to apply yourself with your own business. And I appreciate you've been in marketing for 25 years. How did you get into marketing in the first place and develop that sense of value yourself with your own business?
Well, I think that, to me, they're two different stories. How I got into marketing in the first place was a long time ago. I really wanted to study psychology at university. My dad said, well, if you're going to go to university, you're going to do something that you're going to get a job with. So we found that marketing, where I could study psychology alongside it, was a kind of like a workable, practical compromise in that. So that was really the start of the marketing. But then going forward, for me, it's getting really clear on the value that I bring, and it's tuning into that difference that we make. I know for most coaches, earning the money part of it is great, it's nice, but that's not really why we're in this. It's making a difference. And when we can begin to measure that difference, not easy to do, it's not necessarily easy to do, but as we get a sense of that difference, that makes all the difference in the world in terms of both our mindset and how we come across to clients.
So what's behind that then, in terms of, you mentioned mindset a couple of times there.
Mm-hmm.
From your point of view, your philosophy, your perspective, what do you feel is the right mindset when it comes to marketing yourself as a coach, for example?
One of the mindset pieces that I think a lot of coaches are missing, and this is where I see my work as, adding value, I suppose. It's the moving towards the mindset that you know how to get clients. It puts us back in charge of our business. And then I think people can create their business. It gives a sense of freedom, actually. It gives you a sense of freedom. Certainly for me, if I know that I know how to get clients whenever I want, then I'll only work with the people that I really, really think I can get great results with. There isn't any compromise on that.
So in some respects, it's about having that confidence, and it's also about being selective in terms of who you work with.
I think so. And I would encourage all coaches, and I know most coaches are pretty good at this, actually. it's aligning with who you're really here to help. And I've been working with quite a lot of clients recently. It's interesting, quite a few clients have been coming on board recently because I think as a result of the COVID pandemic, a lot of people are really re-evaluating how they want their business to be, how they want their practice to be, who they're really here to help, rather than doing, that it gets to a bit of a same old, same old. So I think a lot of people are really tuning into what's going to motivate and energize them going forward. And I think people have got into a bit of a, some people, not everybody, have got a sense of actually this is a time to do something a bit differently.
What do you think is going on there? What do you think people were doing perhaps not quite right before the pandemic and causing them to reevaluate what it is that they do and how they do it?
I think like anything, all of us get into habits and our sort of usual way of doing business. I think then that's just to be expected. That's just part of life. So we do have that sense of, and to me, it's a sense of growth. What were the right type of clients and the right way of doing business to get you started in a coaching business, or even 3 to 5 years down the line, you might be working in a certain way. And I have spoken with people, for example, who've done a lot of training and then they've decided, actually, that's a bit same old for me. It's time for me to move into something different or something that's new, exciting and stimulating. So I think it's more like we've just almost like outgrown perhaps our old way of doing business.
It can be a tricky balance, can't it? Being able to do something that we love doing as well as finding the right sort of clients for us. I'm curious to know, I'm supposing our listener might be somebody who's perhaps starting out in their coaching business or thinking about becoming a coach, and they might be thinking, how do I begin to find the right clients for me? What sort of tips and guidance could you offer them in terms of where to begin that journey?
I think if you're just starting out, I liken it, it's almost like to having a front door strategy. And a lot of people seem to like this sort of metaphor. It's like you need a way of getting clients to your front door. And there's a lot of, I'm sure a lot of the listeners have heard of the concept of having a niche. And there's a lot in the coaching world that says, well, you've got to have a niche. And I think particularly people who are at the early stages feel a little bit pressurized perhaps to have a niche. So what I like to do there, and this might be the case also for somebody who's been in business quite some time. You can be in business for many years and still feel, I haven't quite honed this niche thing. I haven't quite got it clear. So a way to go about that a lot of people don't really talk about is like, how do you have a generalism and a niche? Because then, to me, somebody's mind sort of settles down. It's like, if I can be a generalist and I'm moving towards having a niche at the same time, it's like we can forget about that whole inner argument of whether I've got a niche or not that's good enough. It's like, okay, I'll just go with this and I'll see what comes from this. Going back to the front door strategy, the front door strategy is usually the general messaging. So that's your messaging about being a generalist. And then when you get somebody to your front door, then you might talk about your specialism. And then that way you don't feel like you're missing out on opportunities.
So it's a little bit like a funnel in the sense that you broadly outreach to people in terms of generally what you do. And then as they get closer and closer to you, you describe more specifically how you specialize. Is that right?
You can do it like that, but it depends. Once you get somebody to your front door, they may not be interested in your specialism. So, of course, then you might choose not to talk about your specialism because then you might lose them. So for that particular person, you might just stay with your general messaging. But for another person, if you think, actually, that specialism that I offer is exactly the right thing for them, then you could go into that messaging and have that conversation. So it really depends what the person, the potential client, so to speak, at your front door, what are they saying? What are they interested in? What are their challenges and their problems? And through dialogue, you would get to know quite quickly, okay, is this a generalist conversation or a specialism or niche conversation?
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of information about marketing and how best to market yourself as a coach in the world today, I realise. In your experience, Lisa, are there any myths that you can bust for coaches looking to improve their marketing strategy?
Yes, I'd love to bust some myths. I seem to be spending quite a bit of my time on webinars busting marketing myths because I get so cross about it because it's just such a waste of coaches' time. And I think, we're told that you should be on social media, for example. And that is a myth that I would like to bust because a lot of coaches, they don't want to spend a lot of time on social media. It isn't fun. It is not exciting. It's quite an energy drain. And there's some interesting research. So I've found that for myself, with all the hundreds of coaches, maybe even more than that I've spoken to over the years, social media is not a good use of your time for getting clients. It's usually a bit of a waste of time. And it's a diversion because it stops you getting on with the stuff that really does help you to get clients. So the research that backs that up is also from Sherpa, which is really interesting because it tells us about, they did research on how do buyers of executive coaching find their coach. And the research shows, this is from March 2020, so relatively recently, 80% of buyers of executive coaching, and it is similar for all types of coaching and training and consultancy, because people always ask me that, 80% came from referral. It's huge, isn't it? And then the next one down is a web search, which was 8%.
Yeah.
There's no mention of social media. So that is interesting as well.
That is interesting, yeah. So on that, what else do you see working well for coaches from a marketing point of view?
It's all about developing relationships and communication to me. That those are the things that work really well, but it has to be a bit more specific than that. We know that from the Sherpa research that referral, word of mouth marketing, for me, those are quite similar. And that's where that 80% lies. Whenever I'm speaking with coaches and I'm on a webinar and I ask people what really works in terms of their best marketing activity, most people would say to me, it's word of mouth, referrals, recommendations. So to build our practice, to build our business based on getting better at that and being more strategic around that as well. One of the important things to do, one of the things that will make a big difference, I think I've mentioned messaging a little bit. It's getting really clear. So your messaging is getting really clear on the problems and the challenges that you can help your clients with. Because people do not buy coaching. Yes, they do. But in a sense, the coaching is a route to solve a challenge or a problem.
Yeah.
So the more you can speak to that in terms of your messaging and when you're out and about in the world developing relationships, the more you can speak about who you help, i.e. your target market, who you help and the problems and challenges you can help them with, the more opportunities you're likely to get.
So going back to our listener who again might be starting out or indeed might be an experienced coach but looking to grow their coaching practice, what sort of approaches and techniques have you seen work well when it comes to better understanding the problems and the challenges for potential clients?
So for me, that part of the marketing is it sometimes requires a bit of research. So going out and speaking with, getting into conversations with, and you don't have to do that in person, you can do it over Zoom, of course, but getting into conversations and finding out from people, have some conversations with people who are your potential clients and asking them, what are their biggest challenges? What are their biggest problems? And then coaches are really good at listening. So it's like listening to the language of their replies to you, because we as coaches have a sense of what their problems and challenges are, which is a good starting point. But then I'm quite often working with clients on, it's almost like, how do we translate that? How do we translate our language as a coach into the language of our target market? So how do they express their problems and challenges, and tuning into their vocabulary and their way of expressing those problems and challenges?
Yeah, so in some respects, it's about listening carefully to what they are saying and then interpreting, or rather using their words, I suppose, in our own marketing.
Absolutely. Because of course, then you will build rapport and connection with your potential clients because you will be using their language. It's almost like how I see it and how I describe it to my clients is that we need to enter the conversation that is already going on in the head of our potential client. So it's almost like if you could imagine your potential client on their way to work in the morning. On their way to work might be just walking down the stairs at the moment, of course, but imagine ourselves in their mind. What are the biggest problems and challenges that they're mulling over in their heads? It's like they have got to sort this out because it's got to be an expensive problem. If you want to sell your coaching at a high level, tune into the most expensive problems that these people can't solve by themselves, that they've been trying to solve, that they've been wrestling with maybe for months, could be for years sometimes. If you're able to have a conversation about that, people get interested. People get very interested.
Yeah. Have you found working with clients that their clients sometimes aren't even aware of the main challenge or issue that it is that they're trying to solve?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious to learn more about your experience with that and how you've managed to work with your clients to better get into that space where you're helping their clients to realize that actually what they have to offer is something that could support them.
Yes, so it is beginning to understand. And I think it's when we're looking at the clients of my clients, in other words, when you're thinking about you, for the listener, when you're thinking about your clients, what would be the problems and challenges that they're already aware of? Because if we have to educate our potential clients in terms of the problems that they have, that increases the length of what I would call the sales cycle. In other words, you've got to educate somebody about the problem before they're even aware of it. And then that takes some time before they're going to become your client. So if you can start your conversation off with a problem that they're already aware of, so that's where you might go quite general. You're going to increase your opportunities or increase your chances of getting into that conversation. And then it's almost like using your coaching skills, I should say, to ask your potential clients, what are your challenges? What are the implications of those challenges? Because this is where you can really begin to dive a lot deeper. And possibly even look at, and if you are working with corporate clients, this is an interesting thing to do. It's like looking at the cost of those challenges, looking at the cost of doing nothing, which people often don't do. It's almost like people get used to living with problems and it becomes part of their normal life. So I think that's where coaches have such a great opportunity to really be of service as well, to help people to dive deeper into these problems and challenges and the implications and the costs. Because until we do that, people aren't really going to be ready for the transformation, really ready to say yes and step up to doing something differently in life. And I know for most coaches, that's what we love. It's the transformation. We know the transformation that coaching can bring. And that's what many of us love about it. So it's like, okay, so for me, that's one of the perhaps mindset turnarounds in terms of marketing. How can you enjoy your marketing and sales? Well, actually, we're getting people ready for a transformation. Who's ready? Who's up for it? It makes it feel just slightly different. Certainly for me, that makes me feel slightly different compared to if I think I've got to go out there and sell my coaching to people. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. People feel you coming from a mile off.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really interesting perspective there. So what I was hearing was actually this is to some degree as a coach helping your clients or your potential clients understand or better understand the real cost of the issue or the challenge that they're dealing with, rather than just the short-term kind of pain that they might be experiencing with whatever it is that they are experiencing. There's also a long-term consequence, I suppose, from their short-term experience as well. And maybe it's useful for the coach to be able to bring that to their attention, because then all of a sudden they may better understand the problem in a different context. And then that's an opportunity for a coach to present themselves in terms of, as you mentioned there, supporting them through some kind of transformation.
Absolutely. And I think, again, if you want to sell your coaching services at a higher level, that's going to give you the opportunity to perhaps work with a client over a longer period of time, because it's going to take that longer period of time. And when your client recognizes that actually it's not just about a quick fix. And okay, so coaching, some people might experience, which is great, people do experience a transformation, a quick fix in some of the early sessions that we do. But if they are really committed to a longer term transformation, then that's going to be a better experience for them, most likely a better experience for us as the coach. And they're gonna give us a good testimonial, chances are, at the end as well, because they're going to have an amazing transformation. So to me, it's looking at marketing and sales, which sometimes has a bit of a bad reputation. It's looking at that. For me, it's like, how do we make this a win-win-win? How do we make it a win for everybody? And for me, then we can go out there with very open hearts and talk about what we do, because we want a win-win-win. We want everybody to benefit from this.
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back a moment to what you were saying earlier about the investment with social media, for example, and that not being a great use of time and perhaps money. Is there anything else that comes to mind from your experience, Lisa, in terms of where you see them perhaps wasting time and money, doing the wrong kind of marketing?
Yes, a few things. Writing a book, if you're very early into coaching, I don't think a huge number of people get caught up in that one, but writing a book is not a marketing technique for a beginner. To me, writing a book it's more like when you've been in business for quite some time, you are really clear on your messaging and how you work, who you work with. It's more, then you can use it as a marketing tool. It will position you, it will increase your credibility, but not at the beginning, not in the early stages. So that's a mistake. The other one that I hear quite often, and I don't hear many people busting this myth, it's the, I don't know if you've heard of this one, Rob. It's you mentioned a funnel earlier, but it's a very specific funnel that says you get somebody to have a free something from you, then they buy the low cost version, then they go up a bit and they buy the medium price thingamy, and then from there they buy the high price thing.
I've heard of a few of those, yeah.
You've heard of a few of those, and I think there's quite a lot of internet type marketing courses that can teach you that, and that may very well work for certain businesses. So there's nothing wrong with the technique as such, but I really question whether that technique works for a coaching business, because I see so many people, it takes a lot of time to set up a free thing, then a low cost thing, and a medium and a high price. That takes a lot of time to set up from our point of view. But the worst thing about that is that the type of client who would buy the low-priced version is not the same type of buyer who would buy the high-priced version. So it doesn't work for a coaching-based business for that reason.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So that's important to bust, because for me, it's like, well, why would you do that? You may as well just go straight in and position yourself to work at the higher level, or at least the medium price level, because otherwise, to me, it's damaging your credibility as well if you're putting a lot out that's very low priced. Yeah, so you may as well go up the way, because actually then your clients will be expecting results. They won't necessarily expect results from something that's free or very low priced.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually, because I've heard all sorts of different perspectives on that. One is obviously getting people used to paying you, and hence the low cost. But at the same time, I've also heard that actually there's a danger of underpricing yourself as well. So depending on what sort of transformation you're going to take somebody on, I've definitely heard of instances where actually people have made an offer, but they most likely haven't been selected because actually their offer was too low. They would have gained more credibility from offering a higher price from the organization or with the client that they were offering a proposal to. So that's really refreshing to hear, actually, Lisa. Is there anything else? You mentioned writing a book there and also thinking carefully about your pricing strategy. What else might coaches be doing that might be a waste of their sort of time and money?
I think one of the other things that a lot of coaches ask me about, it's how you use your website. So some people, and I've spoken to people who've spent a huge amount of money on websites, and expected that to generate leads. So that's the error. The error isn't in having your website, which is usually a good investment, but not putting all your time and money and effort into just the website. Because for me, the website is more, it's a place that somebody will come to check you out. So it's very useful to have a website. But if you think your website is going to generate a huge number of leads, I'm afraid it's not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's using your website in the right way and having it there as a way in which people who are speaking about you, somebody might go and check you out, and then using your website to encourage people to get in touch with you or engage with you in some way. So that to me is the right way to set up your website. So it doesn't just sit there and you expect to have lots of people coming to you from your website, because that is usually a disappointing discovery, particularly for people in the early stages of their business. And that's what I was told by my coaching school when I trained back in 1999. What was it? Set up your website and the business will come. Well, I set up my website and the business didn't come. So there we are. So that was one I've experienced myself.
Yeah. So just going back to that early experience, and obviously you're somebody who's grown your own business and successfully too, Lisa. I'm curious to know from your experience what the reality of growing your own business has been like for you. What's worked really well, and what are some of the things that, upon reflection, were either quite challenging or perhaps advising somebody else now might not be a path worth going down?
So for me, it was a lot more challenging than I thought it would be. I had no idea. I thought, well, if you get all this good advice, follow your passion and the money will follow, something like that. So I tried that and it didn't result in clients. It was, again, quite disappointing, to be honest. So the whole setting up my coaching business in the early days really wasn't as easy as I had hoped. And I expected, I think, I had to go back and get a day job at some point. And I think that was maybe part of the reason why I do what I do, because I see so many wonderful, talented coaches, but they're not getting their work out into the world in the way that they could be. And my goodness, does the world need your help? So yeah, that for me is a bit of a lost opportunity. So many talented coaches with so many gifts, but that's the piece that's missing for so many people. It's like, how do we get our work out into the world? How do we get ourselves aligned with what we're really here to do? And get into that communication, because it's also by hearing back the way, like I was saying earlier, what are those problems and challenges that our potential clients have? It's only by getting really a clear sense of that we can collaborate with them and work together to help them. The other part that I didn't realize early on, I had no idea about leveraging your business and leveraging your time. So when I very first started, the only coaching model was working one-to-one with clients. That was the only model. And of course, I'm speaking with a lot of coaches now who have what I call, it's almost like maxed out on their time. They're running a successful coaching business. They've got plenty of business coming in. But then the next problem is you've got a ceiling on your time. And that gives you a ceiling on your income. It also means that people get far too busy to really be strategic quite often in terms of how they grow their business going forward. Because as somebody I was speaking with recently, she said, there's only one of me. It's like, I know. And then we've got to come up with other strategies. So how do you leverage your time? And it could be through delivering to groups. I think that's something that hasn't quite happened in such a big way as it could. A lot of people are doing team coaching, but I'm just getting the inklings at the moment of more and more group coaching. And I'm hearing, particularly my experience is that people get even better results by being in a group than they do from having just one-to-one.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so I'm eager to learn a little bit more about that. So what sort of results do you see folks getting in that situation versus the one-to-one?
And so in my experience with coaches I work with, we come together and we celebrate. I think that's what's really nice to do as part of a group, is to celebrate what is going well, because a lot of my clients, they're getting breakthroughs. And of course, we're all working by ourselves. Quite often I'm sensing at the moment coaches and many of us are feeling a bit isolated working from home. So to have that opportunity, particularly when we're working just by ourselves quite often, because most coaches do work by themselves from home, to have that opportunity of getting together and celebrating with other coaches and then looking at what's not working quite so well, and beginning to get ideas and how can we, it's almost like it feels to me on some of these mastermind calls that I'm running that we're together getting a real sense of what is the best practice, not in terms of your coaching, which is one thing that all the coaching training organizations do, but what is the best practice in terms of how you grow your coaching business? And then when you reach that income ceiling, how do you then leverage your time and grow your coaching business further? And to me, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And how do we get in the right mindset for all of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess that's another conversation for another time, talking about the leverage there and the scaling of something that's already successful.
Yes.
Conscious of your time today, Lisa, and I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it's already gone very, very quickly for me. You're in the top 3% of marketers worldwide, which is amazing. I'd love to know what that means to you, but also, what one tip would you give to our listener today thinking about their marketing? What's your number one tip, if you have one, or what's one strong tip that you could offer them for them to be thinking about in terms of marketing with their own coaching practice today, in terms of growing and boosting their own coaching business?
Absolutely. So for me, being in the top 3%, that was a surprise. It was never something I intended to do. It was just somebody else who was a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing said, "Did you realize that puts us in the top 3%?" I said, "What does it?" I had no idea. And I think for me, what that means is, it sounds a bit silly, but it's like, actually, I've got enough skill and experience to really help and make a difference now. So for me, that's what it's about. Yeah, it's not for me. That's why I'm here. First, I know I tried to get out of marketing. That's why I trained as a coach. And it's like, oh, then marketing caught me back up again. So somebody in the universe has got a bigger plan about this than I have, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the one thing that I would suggest, I mean, for anybody who's listening who would like to take this a bit further, I've got a pre-recorded webinar that they can download. And there, what I've also put is, it's a roadmap. So this is the one sort of tip thing. It's to realize that the marketing you do at different stages of your coaching business is quite different. So what I would advise for a beginner or somebody who's just in those early stages, their marketing is going to look quite different to the marketing that I would advise for somebody who's at what I call level 2 or level 3. You're already getting clients in, you're beginning to build your business, and then looking at the other strategies that you do there. So this roadmap to a highly profitable coaching business is probably the most valuable thing I give away. I don't know why I give it away, but it's I just get upset when I see people wasting so much time and they're wasting their talent. So I don't want you to be wasting your time. So if you would like the roadmap, we have now put that available with the free recording. So if you go to my website, which is inspiredbusinessacademy.co.uk, so inspiredbusinessacademy.co.uk. If you then go to the events page there, you will be able to sign up for the free webinar recording, which is all about what marketing works for a coaching business. And there I will take you through some of the aspects of the roadmap, but we'll send you an email then where you can download that roadmap, because I'm hoping that's going to save you a lot of time and effort by knowing what marketing works and what you should be doing at the beginning and what you should be doing later on, and so on and so forth.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. Just before we wrap up, I've got a couple of questions I'd love to ask you. Firstly, what do you do to continually improve your own business and profession?
I guess a couple of things I do. I'm always working with a coach or somebody who is ahead of me in terms of their business. So I'm always investing in my business. And the other thing I do, this again is something I don't always talk about, but for me, it's almost like tuning into the universe. It's tuning into that, what I call inner guidance, intuition. And I'm sharing that more and more with my clients. It's like tuning into what we're really here to do, because there's a bigger game going on than just us. And a lot of the people I work with have a real sense of that. So it's how do we align with what we're really here to do now, who we're here to help. And then my job is to help people with that communication. It's like, how do you communicate and get the right language to engage those people? So that's what I do. And I'm at the moment, I feel like I just open myself up and say, universe, I've got no idea. Just put it in front of me. Tell me what I'm here to do.
That's great. So you very kindly shared that resource on inspiredbusinessacademy.co.uk. Where can our listener best connect with you? And what's next for you also, Lisa?
So people can connect with me. I think you'll be able to find me relatively easily on LinkedIn. So it's Lisa Farr, and the surname is F for Freddie, A-R-R. I think if you search for me, you might want to put marketing in there as well. That would definitely find me. And then what's next for me? I seem to be attracting more and more coaches who really are ready to take their business to the next level. So I've got their coaching business, that's successful business. And then we're looking at the next level challenges. So how do you grow it? How do you have more impact? And again, this is the making a difference piece. How do you continue to have more impact and the ripple out effect of your coaching? How do you have that impact more people while still doing that? I don't know, I like to work 6 hours a week delivery time. It's like, how do you do that so you don't have to work really that hard, but your clients get even more amazing results? I think that's an interesting challenge. And I love going for a walk in the woods in the afternoon. So it's like, I like to put that into my diary, and then other things work around that. And a lot of my clients, we all like to do different things, but it's not about working all the time.
That's fantastic. Lisa, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Rob. An absolute pleasure speaking with you. And I hope it will be useful to everyone who's listening. Thank you for listening if you are.